Santa wore blue that day, the particular shade that Zaid had once said looked beautiful on her. She had remembered it, the way she remembered everything about him, quietly, without being asked. In her hands was a box of sweets from Shizen, his favorite. In her chest was the small, warm weight of a surprise. It was their 4th wedding anniversary, and she had planned it simply. Walk into his office unannounced, watch his face change, drive home together through the evening traffic. He always said anniversaries weren't complete without go-go pay. She had been smiling about that the entire drive over. The 7th floor was quiet. His office door was slightly ajar, and a thin ribbon of light lay across the hallway floor. She stepped toward it, and stopped. A voice drifted through the gap, soft, unhurried, the kind of voice that belongs to someone who has been made comfortable by another person's attention. Tomorrow? I promise. That restaurant you've been wanting to go to, wherever you want. Don't be sad. It was Zaid's voice. She had heard it say, I love you. She had heard it low with sleep and bright with laughter. But she had never, not once in 4 years, heard it sound like this. This tender. This careful. This devoted. Through the crack in the door, she saw a hand resting on his sleeve. Maroon nails. Elegant fingers. And Zaid's hand settling over it. Not pushing it away. Holding it. The way a man holds something that belongs to him. Santa stood there for 4 seconds. Then she took out her phone, opened the voice recorder, and held it toward the gap in the door. 18 seconds. She pressed stop. She put the phone back in her pocket. She turned around. She did not open the door. She did not make a sound. She simply walked back to the elevator, the box of sweets still in her hands, her footsteps even and unhurried, as though she had simply forgotten something and was on her way back to her car. In the elevator, she looked at her reflection in the mirrored doors. Straight posture. Clear eyes. Blue suit. Only her right hand, pressed flat against her thigh, told the truth. Trembling, barely, like a note held too long. She took out her phone and typed to Zaid. Traffic is bad. Going straight to your mother's. Come when you're done. She added the emoji deliberately. He paid attention to her tone. She pressed send, put the phone away, and drove, not to his mother's house, but to her sister Aaliyah's, where the door was always open and no one asked questions before putting the kettle on. Aaliyah opened the door, looked at her sister's face, and stepped aside without a word. Sana came in. She sat on the sofa with the sweet box still in her lap. Salgaira Kimitai, anniversary sweets, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Aaliyah put the kettle on. She brought 2 cups of chai. She sat down. She waited. I saw, Sana said finally. I heard. I recorded it. Aaliyah's cup paused halfway to her mouth. I don't know her name, Sana continued, her voice level as if she were reading from a file. I just heard her voice. And his hand. He held her hand, the way he's never held mine. Aaliyah set down the cup and put her arms around her sister. Sana closed her eyes. The strange thing, the thing she would think about later, was that she did not cry. There was something inside her that knew not yet. There is work to do first. That evening she scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she had saved 2 years ago and never used. Harrisby, lawyer. A family friend. Family law. She had saved it with the thought that one never knew. She had been right. She typed, I need to meet you. It's urgent. He replied in 3 minutes. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock. What happened? She wrote back, a great deal. Then she created a new folder in her cloud storage. She named it Research, because Zaid never looked at her files. Too boring, he always said, laughing. She moved the 18-second recording into it. She would add to it, she knew. Scientists always did. When Zaid came home that night, smelling faintly of the evening, of elsewhere, she had dinner warm and waiting. She handed him his slippers. She asked if he was tired. She listened to him talk about his day. She smiled at the right moments. She refilled his glass. And she watched him, carefully, the way one watches an experiment, without emotion, without judgment. Only observation. Only data. The week that followed had a rhythm to it that only Sana could hear. On the surface, nothing had changed. She went to work. She cooked dinner. She asked about his meetings. She laughed at his jokes. Beneath the surface, she was building something. carefully, the way one constructs an argument that must hold under cross-examination. She met Harris and played him the recording across his desk. He listened without moving. When it ended, he sat back and said, "This is only the beginning. We'll need documentation." She said, "I know. I'm not ready to file yet, but I want everything prepared." He looked at her for a moment. "Your composure is remarkable." She shook her head. "It's not composure, it's a method." She opened a bank account in her name alone. She began transferring money from her salary, slowly, without pattern, the way water finds its way through stone. She called her school principal and asked about a full-time position. "Whenever you're ready," the principal said. "Next month," she replied. She did not tell Zaid. That piece of news belonged only to her. She also began to watch him. Not with suspicion. Suspicion is emotional, exhausting, unscientific. She watched with attention. She noted the angle of his body when his phone lit up. She noted how many times he dimmed the screen when she was nearby. In 7 days, she counted 19. She documented each one. She labeled the folder Week 1. One night, he came home at 11, said there had been a meeting, ate his dinner, watched the news, and fell asleep. Santa lay in the dark beside him and stared at the ceiling. She thought, once, this room felt like shelter. Now it is simply a room. She got up, went to the bathroom, ran cold water over her wrists, and looked at herself in the mirror. The face that looked back was steady, dry-eyed. She spoke to it quietly. "Don't cry. Not yet. If you cry now, he will manage it, and he is very good at managing things. Be the doctor, collect the data, draw the conclusion later." She dried her hands, went back to the room, and slept deeply. The sleep of a sharpened blade returned to its sheath, quiet and still and ready. The week that followed had a rhythm to it that only Sana could hear. On the surface, nothing had changed. She went to work, she cooked dinner, she asked about his meetings, she laughed at his jokes. Beneath the surface, she was building something, carefully, the way one constructs an argument that must hold under cross-examination. She met Harris and played him the recording across his desk. He listened without moving. When it ended, he sat back and said, "This is only the beginning. We'll need documentation." She said, "I know. I'm not ready to file yet, but I want everything prepared." He looked at her for a moment. "Your composure is remarkable." She shook her head. "It's not composure, it's a method." She opened a bank account in her name alone. She began transferring money from her salary, slowly, without pattern, the way water finds its way through stone. She called her school principal and asked about a full-time position. "Whenever you're ready," the principal said. "Next month," she replied. She did not tell Zaid. That piece of news belonged only to her. She also began to watch him. Not with suspicion. Suspicion is emotional, exhausting, unscientific. She watched with attention. She noted the angle of his body when his phone lit up. She noted how many times he dimmed the screen when she was nearby. In 7 days, she counted 19. She documented each one. She labeled the folder Week 1. One night, he came home at 11, said there had been a meeting, ate his dinner, watched the news, and fell asleep. Santa lay in the dark beside him and stared at the ceiling. She thought, once, this room felt like shelter. Now it is simply a room. She got up, went to the bathroom, ran cold water over her wrists, and looked at herself in the mirror. The face that looked back was steady, dry-eyed. She spoke to it quietly. "Don't cry. Not yet. If you cry now, he will manage it, and he is very good at managing things. Be the doctor, collect the data, draw the conclusion later." She dried her hands, went back to the room, and slept deeply. The sleep of a sharpened blade returned to its sheath, quiet and still and ready. 3 weeks in, the other woman came to her. She was waiting in the school parking lot when Sana walked out. Pink dupatta, careful makeup, eyes reddened in a way that hadn't disturbed the mascara. Maroon nails. The hands she had seen in the doorway. "Bobby," she said. Her voice trembled with practiced precision. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married at first. I feel terrible. Please, please, don't punish him for my mistake." Santa looked at her for a moment, the way one looks at a lab result that has come back exactly as expected. "What's your name?" "Rita," Santa said, her voice unhurried, almost gentle. "When I was 22, I won my first research award. When I was 25, I paid off my father's debt alone, from my own salary, over 3 years. I'm not telling you this to impress you. I'm telling you so you can think, honestly, about what you chose and whether it was worth it. She opened her car door, got in, and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, she saw Rita standing very still, her careful expression cracked slightly open, something ugly beginning to show beneath. Santa did not watch long enough to see the rest. She drove away. That evening, Zaid came home with dark red roses. He was softer than usual, more attentive, more considerate, the particular tenderness of a man managing his guilt. Santa accepted the flowers and arranged them in a vase. She knew what they cost. Not money, effort. The effort of a man who had been reminded of what he stood to lose and was now, quietly, recalibrating. I see you, she thought, her back to him as she trimmed the stems. I have always seen you. You simply never noticed that I was looking. By the end of the month, everything was in order. Harris had the complete file. Bank records, the recording, documentation of the financial transfers she had traced, the screenshots, the timeline. It's enough, he said, whenever you're ready. The full-time job had begun. Her salary, now entirely her own, moved each month into her private account. She had continued to attend Zaid's family dinners, to bring fruit for his mother, to ask after his father's health. She played her role with the same patience and precision she brought to everything she cared about, and the performance cost her nothing because she had already left the stage. She was simply collecting her things on the way out. On a Tuesday evening, Zaid was watching television. Sana came and sat across from him. She did not raise her voice. She did not begin to cry. She simply said, I need to talk to you. Something in her stillness made him set the remote down. She took out her phone and pressed play. Tomorrow, I promise. That restaurant you've been wanting, wherever you want, don't be sad. His voice filled the room. Warm, careful, devoted, everything she had never been given. The color left his face in a slow downward tide. I recorded this 6 weeks ago, she said. On our anniversary, when I came to your office with sweets. He opened his mouth. She continued. I don't need an apology. I don't need an explanation. I've already spoken to my lawyer. The documents are ready. You can stay tonight or you can go. That's your choice. But I'm not moving from this life I've built. Not for you. Not for anyone. He talked for a long time after that, explanations, promises, the full architecture of a man trying to dismantle what he sensed was already decided. Sanaa listened where she had to and stayed quiet where she didn't. By morning, he had gone to his mother's house. The apartment was hers. She stood in the kitchen and made chai and listened to the silence, and for the first time in 4 years, the silence felt like hers too. The next morning, she went to her wardrobe and found the black blazer. She had bought it years ago, structured, clean-lined, the kind of thing that made a room pay attention. She had stopped wearing it when Zaid said it made her look too severe. She had put it away and reached instead for softer colors, quieter shapes, versions of herself that did not make him uncomfortable. She had been doing this for years in ways she had not, until recently, fully counted. She put it on. She looked in the mirror for a long time. The woman who looked back was not someone new. She was simply the one who had always been there, underneath the apron, behind the warm smile, beneath 4 years of careful, thankless effort. She had not disappeared. She had waited. Her phone lit up with a message from Aliyah. How are you? Sana wrote back, I'm all right. For the first time in a long time, I actually mean it. Aliyah sent a single heart. That was enough. Sana set her phone down and looked out the window. Morning light was coming in clean and direct, the way she intended to live from now on. The divorce would take time. There would be hard conversations and harder days. There would be a moment, she knew, when she would finally cry, not from weakness, but because some griefs simply need to be processed, like data, like anything real. But that was later. This morning, she made her chai, she stood by the window, and she breathed the specific, unfamiliar air of a life that was entirely, at last, her own. She had not broken. She had not begged. She had not made a scene on his territory, by his rules, in a battle designed for her to lose. She had simply waited until she held every card, and then she had played them all at once, quietly, without drama, the way a woman plays who has been underestimated for a very long time. She did not destroy him out of anger. She simply stopped holding him up, and that, in the end, was enough. For every woman who chose strategy over spectacle and came out with everything that was hers,